tell me your name and your date of birth.
Betty Colburn, December 24th, 1929.
And where were you born?
Prairie Grove.
Prairie Grove. Now, Betty, the interview is conducted by Scott Davis, and the purpose of the project is to Cane Hill Oral History Project, and we want to be sure that we have your permission to use this interview for educational purposes. Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Betty. Who are your parents?
Ira and Bertie Hutchins.
And where did you grow up?
In Prairie Grove.
And how long did you live in Prairie Grove?
21 years.
21 years.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like growing up in Prairie Grove as a kid?
It's very different from nowadays. It's safe to walk from school down to the downtown, and it's very different now. Very laid back.
What were your earliest memories in Prairie Grove?
Well, I don't know. We used to go to the fair every year. They called it the reunion. And every summer we go to the Battlefield Park to a school reunion, it's an all-town reunion. And then when we were in grade school, we did a lot of egg hunts and parties up at the Battlefield Park. At that time it wasn't as large as it is now, but I have a lot of good memories of parties at the Prairie Grove Battlefield Park.
When was the first time that you came to Cane Hill?
I came to Cane Hill with my dad and my sister. The teacher at Prairie Grove School had said that my sister needed an eye examination, so we brought her up to Dr. Russell's office across the street. So that was my first memory of coming to Cane Hill.
Where was the office?
It was across the street from the museum now. It's across the street from the museum, directly across the street, yes.
Oh.
And I remember coming to that.
How old would you have been then?
Probably 12 or 13, because my sister was older and she was still in high school.
What was the town like in those days? What do you remember seeing here?
I remember the fountain in the middle of the street, and spring fed from the spring up above, and people would stop there with their horses and water their horses, and I remember that very well.
Had you ever seen something like that in the middle of the street?
No, I hadn't. It was a new thing for me to see that. Very interesting.
Did you come visit any of the stores in town while you were there?
Not really. I don't remember visiting any of the stores. I guess the one was across the street. And I can't remember the other buildings that you see in pictures of the old town. I can't remember those being there, but they could have been.
When did you first move to Cane Hill and why?
Moved in 1951. My husband was from here. He lived here. So when I married, we
was
in 1951.
Howard Colburn?
Right, Howard Colburn. Mm-hmm.
So you moved when you married?
I did.
Mm-hmm. Now, Howard, your husband, he attended school here. What memories did he tell you about the school? I know he has talked a lot about it. Tell me about it.
Oh, it was always full of stories. Yeah, he enjoyed his school day here and lived in the house across from the church. And so he would walk to school and then go back home for lunch. But he said, had many memories of the Cane Hill School.
Good memories? Good
memories, right.
Who were some of his teachers?
See, Johnny Miller and Mrs. Kate Finley, and I'm trying to think. I'm not sure Pauline Irwin. I'm not sure about that, but I know Mrs. Finley and Mr. Miller and were some of his teachers that he talked to about.
Who were some of his friends and classmates?
Bob Reinhardt, and he and Bob used to go squirrel hunting in the winter, Bob lived in the area, and of course James Irwin was always a friend. They were in the same class at school, and so that was some of his, and Francis Taylor and different ones. But I remember Bob Reinhardt being a special friend then.
Tell me about your family's farm and your business there in Clyde. What did y'all do?
The family farm belonged to Howard's grandparents, the Risleys, and then it went to his parents, Paris and Nancy Colburn, and then when we married, we moved on the farm, and then we lived there always up until I still live there.
Did y'all build the house you're in now?
We did.
What year?
In 1963, we built our house that we have now. There was another house on the property, and we lived in it until we built our new house.
Is it torn down, or is it still
The house,
there?
yes, we sold that house too. Yeah.
Who did you sell it to?
To the Loftons, Margaret and Arvel Lofton.
So that's where she lives now, is it?
Margaret doesn't live there now. She used to. They used to be our neighbors.
Well, when you first got married and moved out here, what would young adults do for fun?
There wasn't a lot going on. Like I said before, we went to the rook parties and potlucks in the auditorium at the college. That was very enjoyable. Of course, at that time there were several people in church, and we had younger couples. So there was activities here, not a lot, of course, but
Now, which church?
the Presbyterian Church, Cane Hill Presbyterian Church. We went there, and I still go there, and so it was.
Were there any dances or events like that you might have done?
We did the square dance. There was just about 6 or 7, maybe 7 couples in the area that had a square dance club, and we met at the old drugstore.
What years would that have been in?
That would have been in the early 50s, and then later that club migrated to Fayetteville to another group.
Now, do you ever remember the mill or anyone talking about you going to the mill?
My husband talked about it a lot, and he said he went with his father when it was still in operation. So I remember him saying that.
What years would that have been, Derry?
Goodness, it must have been back in the 40s or latter 30s, because he was just a boy. Of course, in the 40s was when they were all going to World War II, so it probably would have been the latter 30s or early 40s.
Okay. Let's talk about the school and the old college building, and the history of it, kind of how the school closed and then you guys took over.
Yes, the school closed. I'm not sure of the date. I think that the high school from the 9th grade up consolidated with Lincoln and went to Lincoln, and then I think through the 8th grade remained in Cane Hill, and then finally it was just like 3 grades that stayed in Cane Hill, and then the place was leased to Araminta Richardson for a music camp, and then in 1983 she turned it back to the Lincoln School probably turned it back to the community, and at that time when it was first turned back to the community, it was in charge of the Cane Hill Presbyterian Church session was in charge of it, and then later they decided to try to redo the school, and a lot of people in the community were interested in restoring it, so we got a grant and sent out letters to local former students and other people that were interested, and so we got a 50-50 grant, so from the state and then from the contributions from the former students, and so then that was when it all started to be redone again.
Now, you were a big part of that from the very beginning, weren't you?
I was-
You and your husband
Yes.
helping with the committee that was in charge of the college. Tell us about that.
Well, yes, we were both interested, and it was, they formed a board, and I think my husband was on the board the first time, and that was formed, and so we were interested in the very beginning, and so they managed to keep it up, and we had the festival every year, and they always had all-school reunion, and then some family reunions and whatever, and then it managed to keep it going until the transition to historic Cane Hill.
Tell about the festival. Whenever you decided to start doing the festival, what was the purpose and what was your role?
It was to maintain funds to keep the college in as good a repair as we could, and also to pay campus mowing and insurance on the building. So it was, we had the festival every year in September, and we still do. And it was always sort of a challenge to keep it going from one year to the next, but we always managed. We knew how much it would probably take, and we managed to keep it going until the transition to historic Cane Hill.
What about the community, the people in the community? Were they involved in helping with this?
Yes, they were. Everybody was real faithful, and we had people from Cane Hill and Clyde and Mara and Lincoln that also helped us through the festival. Now, the festival's hard work, but it was fun too. But it was hard work. But we had a lot of cooperation from the area.
What about your work now? Aren't you still involved in the restoration in an advisory manner? Talk about that.
Yes, I serve on the advisory board, and then I'm treasurer of the advisory board. So.
Are you still involved with the festival too?
Yes, I do what I can. I'm getting a little slower with that, but my interest is there, but my energy isn't, but I still want to be a part of it.
So you've been in charge of the festival's money every year since they've had it,
Since
right?
1983. My husband was first treasurer, and then when he went off the board, went to me, and I've done it ever since. And so, anyway.
What would you like to see done with that old college building and the campgrounds or the grounds there once it's done?
I really hope that it will be active, and the school reunions will be there. The festival will still be going on, and I wish we had the 4-H club again, and the quilting maybe, and things like that for the community benefit. And wedding receptions they'll try to have there, I think. So just so it stays active, and so happy that it's being redone and will be preserved.
What are some other things you could tell me about Cane Hill? Maybe there's something I haven't asked or something you could think of.
It's been enjoyable living in Cane Hill, my 60-something years now. I wouldn't trade it for any other location or anything about it. It's been a joy to me to live in Cane Hill.
Now, throughout the years when you first moved here, did you run to town every time you needed something? Did you go to Lincoln or Fayetteville every?
Not necessarily.
How often would you do that?
We probably go once a week, to town, but tried to buy things that locally if we could, and so on. Gas, and we always bought here or at the Clyde store, and so it's been good living in Cane Hill. My life, raising my family here, and my husband definitely enjoyed it because he was born here, and the farm is a third-generation farm for us. It's all been positive, most all everything.